And we are back with another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. I am very happy to be joined once again by two great handicappers to be breaking down an upcoming UFC card. Want to apologize for my absence last week, guys. I was overworked, overtired, undermotivated, but we're still tough enough to come back and whoop this card. And so I'm really excited, guys. I had two tough weeks in a row from a betting perspective after quite a nice winning streak, 21 out of 24 events in the green. So now we're looking to finish out the year strong, still on a very positive note so far for the year. And I think that we have a pretty decent betting offering in front of us at UFC Fight Night. Miesha Tate and Ketlen Vieira. So I'm excited to break it down with my man Marathon, returning friend of the show, and Prodigy MMA, another returning guest, and also somebody that we're very excited to have back on board. So before we get started, just want to mention this show, all my content brought to you by PrizePicks. If you're looking for more information, it's in the description box below. But all you need to know is it's the easiest DFS game out there. You're not playing against a million other people. You're just playing against their projections. They've got MMA lines. They've got football, baseball, basketball, everything that you could possibly want. So check it out in the description box below. Use my promo code Liam for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Now, with that being said, we are going to bring in the stars of the show today. First and foremost, my man Prodigy's making his return to the program. We're very happy to have him. Prodigy, how you doing, my friend?
Good, Liam. How you doing? We got a good card ahead of us. Kind of underrated in my opinion, judging by the main event, but I like the action here.
I'm with you, man. And I feel like, a lot of fights underneath this could have made for interesting main events as well. This does have implications in that bantamweight title picture for the ladies. So I think that that's why it's ultimately going to get that 5-round distinction. But I agree with you, man. There's a lot of hidden gems on this card and some great action fights that I'm looking forward to breaking down. So we also brought along my man, Marathon MMA. Welcome back to the program, Marathon. How you been, my friend?
How you doing, Liam?
I'm doing well, boss, and I know that you're excited to break this down as well. So let's get right into it, boys. We've got an interesting card that will start in the women's strawweight division, 115 pounds. Luana Pinheiro is making her return after a pretty awkward, UFC debut. And on the other side, we've got Sam Page, Sam Hughes. And, she's had a pretty rough go at it in terms of her level of competition. Doesn't have a ton of professional experience in her own right. So this is, one of the lowest level fights on the card. It's probably appropriate that it's going to be opening things up. And, it could be a decent action banger. I think both these girls are pretty violent. Sam Hughes kind of has been out-violenced and out-controlled and out-muscled in some of her fights. But I think ultimately, she might have something to offer on the feet in this matchup if she's able to keep it there. I thought that she was doing a decent job at boxing range with Loma Lukbunmi, who's also going to be featured on the card. So I'm going to kick this matchup over to my man Prodigy first. Is this something that you like to target from a betting perspective, or is this a match you're going to be passing on?
Yeah, I'm not too interested in this fight, honestly. Not high on Pinheiro too much. She's got great judo. She was throwing Marcos across the cage. But her gas tank just doesn't get it done for me. But luckily for her, she's facing Sam Hughes, who's not the best competition. She honestly put up a tough fight against Lukbunmi last time she was out. She did a little better than expected. But that Tecia Torres fight's still in the back of my mind. But if one of Luana Pinheiro's early fights, she fought Chris Mack for her only loss that left the first round. She was really slowing down the second, third round. She was running a lot in that third round. I would like to see what her cardio looks like now. I don't hate a stab on Hughes at plus 3,500 in the third round. Or Pinheiro by TKO, I see plus 450, but playing this straight up, I don't see any value on either side.
Makes sense to me. Marathon, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, you don't have to bet this fight. Pinheiro's minus 400, I believe. Low-level women's MMA, questionable gas tank. We don't really know much about her cardio. Hughes is a step down in competition for her, right? She's had a pretty hard schedule. She's a junkyard dog, in my opinion. She She's gonna come forward. She's probably gonna have few moments here. So Pinheiro probably wins, yeah, but do you want to parlay her? No. I mean, maybe play her inside the distance. I think that's at plus money, and then maybe not stress about the gas tank and just hope she gets it done early. But there's no need to bet this fight. This is kind of a collect data spot for Pinheiro because they seem to like her and she might be a decent prospect. So definitely sit back and watch this one.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll add in support of her is that I think she's getting, a favorable matchup here and placement on, a pretty obscure card to give her a chance to rebuild herself after, a tough and weird first out where she was looking good and then kind of had it all fall apart, in terms of that weird ending to the fight. So I think that they're trying to give her a fresh coat of paint with this matchup and a winnable fight. She does train with Ketlen Vieira. I saw them photoed together. But what I started to notice was like there is like a cardio problem, it would seem to me, from these Novo and Yao fighters, probably more pronounced over the course of 5 rounds. But I think that even in some 3-round fights, we've seen Vieira slow down. We've seen, Pauliana Bocello, Lara Procopio, who I thought was the goods against Cheyenne Bays and then absolutely collapsed on me in the second round. So I think that might just be something to monitor is fighters from Novo and Yao just potentially being a little bit of a cardio liability in some of these fights. And I just noticed that they all trained together and I thought it was interesting, but not a fight that I have tremendous interest in. So we can move right along to Sean Soriano. What I think is this his 6th time up in the UFC or 5th time up. He's had a lot of cracks now, but it seems like his most winnable matchup yet, and he is favored to defeat Shailan Nurdanbekov. I'm trying my best. That's a tough name, but this is not a fight that I have tremendous interest in. Sean Soriano as a massive favorite is not something I'm going to be playing. I feel like there's like a pathology to his losses. It's not like he looks terrible at wrestling or grappling in the first round. It's just that if you force him to do it over and over, he starts to get disheartened and discouraged. And I think that ultimately that's where Yago's had success. I don't think he's as good in extended grappling scenarios. I think he's very good at his get-up game. I think he's pretty good at disengaging the clinch, but I think that it's just not a lot of depth to the game. I think he's got very good first layer skills defensively as a grappler. I just think that Soriano could always be exploited in the grappling. I think that that's a big concern for me. And his striking is good, but even against some of the regional level guys, he wasn't putting them away and he was starting to slow down, in my opinion, by the 3rd round. And so that's a big concern for me here. I think Soriano, probably should win this fight, but it's not a fight that I want to have a financial investment, especially on the side of the favorite. Prodigy, how do you feel about this?
Usually I like to avoid these kind of fights, but I don't hate Soriano in this spot. If you could get under the -300 tag, I saw -275s out there. I mean, is he the biggest favorite that's 0-4 in their UFC career? I think he might be, but his striking is high level. He has okay wrestling. It's just he gives up his neck. Any type of submission he can just get put out with. So that's always a cause for concern. I'm not high on the Wolverine here. I think he's really low quality. I don't think he should be in the UFC, but I don't hate a stab at Soriano here. By TKO, I don't hate either. Zhang Ru was able to knock out Shailin in the first round. I think 2 minutes in, he really put it on him. I think Soriano could have somewhat of similar success here.
Fair enough. I mean, that all makes sense to me. Marathon, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, just another one of those fights that I think is unnecessary to bet, considering the price tag. This might be one of the only guy on 145 that Soriano is -300 against, and that says a lot. This guy shouldn't be -300 against anybody. He's a journeyman trying to make his way back, and he probably gets, the win here just based on the fact that he actually throws punches, unlike his opponent. His opponent literally just doesn't do anything on the feet. So, not laying the number, but I do think he wins.
Fair enough. So me and Marathon kind of see this one the same way, sort of think that he's probably got a good path, but not necessarily willing to lay the number. Prodigy thinks that, the opposition is so bad he can get behind Sean Soriano even at the higher price tag. So I think that that's a fair way to look at this fight. Again, not one that I'm tremendously interested in, so we can move along. We've got a few of these Chinese prospects sort of at the beginning of the card here, where next up we've got Keeling Aori. Art, I think they called him like Archie Lang or something on the broadcast. I don't want to butcher his name. So, Aori and Durden, that's what we'll say. Cody Durden on the other side, all-American name, just a few letters, very simple Cody Durden. And I thought that the Jimmy Flick fight kind of played out according to my expectations. I kind of thought that Cody would put himself in bad positions. He gets a little reckless with his grappling. It's a little predictable. As well. I don't know that he's super comfortable, even in the top position. So I would not be laying chalk on Cody Durden in this fight. But we have seen that a lot of these UFC PI fighters from China have struggled tremendously in the defensive wrestling and grappling. It's one thing to be a hammer on top. It's one thing to get on top of people and look good, especially in regional MMA. But I think in some of the more extended grappling sequences, they've been getting exposed a little bit. But I thought that the last Contender series at least was a better offering from them. So hopefully we're making incremental improvements here. I don't have any money on this fight yet, but I would be leaning towards the dog or passing on this fight ultimately. Prodigy, how do you feel about this one?
I like Archie Lang here. He's a solid striker. I like his volume. I'll definitely take him at the dog odds. I'm hoping that line keeps going up. I'll take anything plus 130 or above. I'm not sold on Durden. I don't think he's completely comfortable on the feet. He's got decent leg kicks, but I think Archie Lang can piece him up here a little bit if it stays. Maybe Durden lands a takedown or two, and he's active in the first round, but we've seen him slow down before. I know it was on short notice, but Archie Lang, he slowed down in the third against Molina, but he fought him tough even in that third round, and he rocked him with a few seconds left. He's a decent wrestler. His get-up game's okay. But I really think he can put up a good fight here, and at dog odds, I'm willing to take him.
I love it. I love it. I kind of feel the same way. Marathon, how about you?
Yeah, I have a 2 units on Cody Durden minus 120. So big change in the number there, right? So at the number now, can't really bet it, but yeah, I'm getting a pick'em fight. I'm getting the dude with the better wrestling. I'm getting the dude whose losses have actually aged very well. He was winning the first round against Flick. The Gutierrez draw doesn't look too bad now, considering how good Gutierrez is. I just think that he'll be able to grind this one out. The striking might, get a little dicey, but I think he can keep it competitive. He throws pretty hard. He throws, he spams those hooks. He gets good leg kicks. He comes forward. He's kind of like a meat and potatoes kind of fighter. So, yeah, I think that he'll be the one, pushing the fight up against the cage, maybe landing some takedowns. I'm hoping here that he banks 2 rounds because, like Prodigy said, he has slowed down. I think he wins round 1 at a high clip. So, Aori to me would be probably a live betting spot. So, yeah, I'm not. It's nothing big. Don't like the number now, but at a pick'em price, I think Cody was the side.
Fair enough. And that all makes sense to me, guys. We got to remember at the end of the day, we're not playing fighters, we're playing numbers. And I think that if you got in at that early number, it makes a lot of sense. The market agrees. But now I think it's when it's starting to creep back into that potential dog territory. So, we're going to have to wait and see what this number does a little bit closer to fight time. I have not gotten involved yet. So I'll wait and see if there's more love on the Cody Durden side, then maybe I'm going to get involved on that dog shot. But I also think Marathon might be onto something with a live betting opportunity here. Live betting spots are something I've been trying to take a little bit better advantage of. Don't include them in my track record, but obviously we're looking for opportunities to make money. And if we have a good spot for a live entry, I think that that makes a lot of sense, especially when you have a fighter that might win the first round at a high clip and start to slow down. Those are the best people to take live entries against, in my opinion. So with that being said, we can move on to the next fight on the card. Man, this is when the card starts to get fireworks going off early. We got Ziam taking on Terrence McKinney, MMA Twitter's favorite fighter, and for good reason. The guy's a lot of fun, seems like a nice guy, and he's got a great story. Ziam on the other side, he's part of this French takeover, guys. The French are looking pretty good now, I must say, in the UFC, and I wanted to fade him. I wanted to think of us Americans as too tough for these French guys, but they've got real skills, and you got to respect the combat sports pedigree coming out of France. That being said, I've cashed some tickets on Ziam as well in this UFC run. The Malarkey one, maybe we sneaked one by, but then I also had him in the Vendramini fight. So this guy Ziam, I think he's competitive in a lot of positions. Me and Marathon actually went back and forth about this fight just a little bit, and I told him my concerns for McKinney here is that he keeps that, or excuse me, for Ziam here is that he keeps that chin just a little bit high. Sometimes he's a little bit reactive in the early striking exchanges, trying to find that distance, trying to read some patterns. But I think he's good at working his way into a fight, and I think that he's got good range, good positioning here, pretty decent anti-grappling tools overall. And so I think that, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the price here. I think there's probably going to be some late action that comes in on McKinney from the public before sharps buy it back. I'm going to be looking for that number if it gets to plus money. But I also think that Ziam at minus 110 at that pick'em price on BetMGM looks a little tempting right now to me. And I think that McKinney, he's got a lot of skills, in different positions. He can actually wrestle at a high level. And he was absolutely working Sean Woodson. Made me think that Woodson had like no wrestling skills at the time. And then he kind of got caught, and that's like the story for Terrence McKinney is that he looks very good in the early going and he could put somebody away. But as the fight goes on, does he run out of ideas? Does he start to lose focus? Is cardio a factor? I think it could be some combination therein, but I think ultimately Terrence McKinney's most dangerous in the first round. Whereas for Ziam, I've seen him start to pick people apart as the fight goes on. The one that stands out to me is the Lapalus knockout. Is pretty devastating, and was able to connect with punches, kicks, high kicks, snap up a high kick very fast, throwing in good combination. He doesn't throw these long combinations that get you countered. He really throws in 2 and 3 round bursts. And I think that overall he's going to have the more complete game here. So I'm going to lean towards Ziam as a pick. And I'm also going to be playing Ziam if I can get a plus money price, or maybe enter for a unit at that minus 110 tag. Prodigy, how do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, so I don't have any action on this fight yet. McKinney's somewhat of a glass cannon. He might be in that glass cannon category, not there yet, but he's never seen the judges' scorecards. I think last 6 or 7 fights ended in the first round. People just think he's a knockout artist now, but he's got solid wrestling. It's just, can he hold that for 3 rounds? I think he's got the power advantage here, but I would definitely give the striking advantage to Ziam. He's crisp on the feet. It's can he stay off his back, honestly. If he keeps this fight standing for 3 rounds, I think he should be able to take it, but I'm definitely not willing to bet on that. A sneaky prop I like could be the McKinney sub. He's got a bunch of early ones in his career. I think if he gets this down to the mat, plus 700 isn't a bad price.
Interesting look. Marathon, how do you feel about this one? Yeah, so I'm on McKinney, not nothing crazy, just because we're all on the same page here, like the cardio questions. You can't really unload the clip. You want to unload the clip because, this guy has this perceived death touch. Ziam fights tall man and defense, and the chin's there to take. So I got 1.5 units on him at minus 110. It's a close fight. It really is. I know a lot of people are unloading the clip on Terrence like it's not. It is.
Did we lose our man Marathon for a
Pocket.
second? Oh, no, you're back.
All right. So what I was saying is it is a close fight, but the power is where I think is what separates these two, and the fact that McKinney has wrestling in his back pocket, two-time state champion wrestler. I think he was ranked nationally. Um, he's a fast starter, and I could see the power and the more damaging shots swaying the rounds. Whereas it looks like Ziam's the more technical guy, but McKinney's landing the harder punches, the more damaging strikes, maybe swaying some rounds. And Ziam's been taken down in a lot of his fights. He got taken down in all of his fights, actually. Luigi took him down, Malarkey took him down, and Don Madge. And Don Madge is a striker. So I think that this is another spot where if you like Ziam, you're going to want to bet him live. Because in what world, if we are saying McKinney is a glass cannon, he's this dude that has no tank, but if it was a 1-round fight, he's probably beating 70% of the roster. You know what I mean? Like, why not bet Ziam live? Because Ziam, if anything, Ziam's going to collect data, not want to get put on a meme in the first round like the rest of these guys that McKinney's fighting. He's hearing in the media how this kid's knocking everyone out in 10 seconds. So maybe he comes out here, plays it safe, weathers the storm early, and Ziam looks to cash in rounds late, or maybe gas out McKinney. So Ziam to me is a live bet or a pass. The line has been moving his way more than McKinney's. I saw McKinney hit plus 105 just yesterday. So the line's not moving in the casual side that we would think. It's moving towards Ziam. So to me, wait around if you like Ziam. He's the more technical guy. He's really good at managing distance. Maybe McKinney slows down. If McKinney does shoot, you're banking that he can't. I am having some slow Wi-Fi, so just bear with me.
Yeah, no worries at all. I think what you were asking was whether or not, I'm confident that Ziam won't get held down here. And I wouldn't say that I'm confident. I just think that Ziam is probably able to make it interesting, even off his back. I think if you go back in the Malarkey fight, I thought that he showed some interesting stuff off of his back. And I think there's regional examples as well. I would also note the thing that makes me a little more concerned here, and maybe it'll be enough to keep me off it. I've just been thinking about the fact that it is in a small cage. McKinney's probably going to be able to get to him a little bit easier as a result of that. I think if Ziam had more space to work, that would be an advantage. But I will just note, man, a lot of his fights regionally were in a ring. And I think that that's going to give him a pretty good ability to move around in tight space. So I think Ziam's an interesting play here. I like his length and reach and things like that. But yeah, maybe I'm going to wait and see how the first round plays out. But my only concern is just that I do think Ziam, he's not the most powerful guy, but I think he could catch McKinney on the counter. McKinney's throwing these massive bombs and trying to take people out in the first round. That also leaves you there to be hit in the first round. And I do think it's not outside the realm that we see Ziam, find his own finish in the first round. So that would be my only concern, especially the way McKinney fights. He basically forces a dogfight out of you. And I just think that Ziam might be fast and technical in there and land some good counter shots. So I might invest small early and then see if I like a live entry as well to go along with it. But maybe it makes sense to collect some data before I get in. Either way, guys, we can move along to a women's strawweight fight. Another fun one here. Another one I spent some time trying to break down because I think it's a pretty interesting matchup. We got Loma Lukbunmi. I believe she's the first Thai fighter signed to the UFC. And on the other side, we got Lupita Godinez. Can't have a UFC event in a month without seeing Lupita Godinez make another appearance, it would seem. And, she fell on hard times last time out. I think she weighed in at 121 pounds for a flyweight fight. That did not make me feel good about that, ticket I was holding. So I was like, Jesus Christ. And it looked ugly on the night of too. I thought her wrestling looked okay in round one. I thought that she probably gassed herself a little bit trying to control somebody bigger and stronger. I think a lot of her wrestling game is predicated on her being more physical than her opponent. And I actually think she is going to be more physical than Loma Lookboonmee. You know, Loma's a pretty small 115 pounder. In my opinion, she's growing into the weight a little bit. She's been talking about, you know, making conscious strength and conditioning improvements. And I believe her in that regard, but she's got a lot of things that she needed to shore up to compete in this 115-pound division, in my opinion. You know, I think that Loma's good. She obviously has the fun clinch game. She's dangerous there. Girls don't want to hang out with her in the clinch. But I think that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, Sam Hughes, you know, is getting her decent shots in at boxing range against Loma Lookboonmee. I think that, in my opinion, Lupita, for all her other flaws, you know, Vanessa Demopoulos is super hittable, but she was absolutely working Vanessa Demopoulos in that fight. On the regionals, you know, she dominated the last person they brought in for her on short notice, as well, the Juarez girl, and, you know, finished a belly down armbar. Ironically, it was a belly down armbar that submitted Loma Lookboonmee in 2018 in a fight that she had against a girl that hasn't gone on to tremendous success, another Thai fighter, you know, a middling level pro, who's primarily a striker, who said before the fight, I'm going to submit her, and then went out there and submitted her in like 2.5 minutes. It was crazy. And I thought that Loma's grappling looked suspect at the time. It's possible that she's improved it. She was very young at the time, 22 or something, but I think she's still a primary striker. I think Loopy, you know, her sisters are like U23 medalists for the Canadian, you know, junior team. So I'm like, man, I think Loopy is probably training with pretty solid people. I think that overall her wrestling looked poor in the Luana fight because she kept going to body locks on somebody that's taller than her. I think if she body locks Loma, there's a decent chance she could take her down. But I think moreover, against somebody so short, the legs are going to be available to her in ways that it would be hard to elevate the legs of her last opponent, Luana Carolina. So I think that, you know, I'm not rushing to play Loopy here, but I also see a lot of people taking the Loma shot. And while I understand it, you know, I think ultimately I saw enough signs here that I might just end up passing this fight or looking into a prop potentially on that Loopy submission. Because I do think that that is a live outcome here. And I think that Loma has looked okay because she has been able to like throw people around, you know, and bail herself out. She was offensively grappling Sam Hughes in that fight. I don't think that any of that's going to be available in this fight. So I think this is a much tougher test for her. And I like Loopy way better at 115 pounds than 125. So let's see how this shakes out. But we'll kick it to my man Prodigy first. How do you feel? Am I crazy?
Yeah, this is actually my biggest play of the card here. I'm all over Loopy here. This is a good buy low spot coming off that loss to Carolina, who probably had 15, 20 pounds on her in the cage. Loma's got a good takedown offense, 76%, but who has she really faced that's going to try and take her down? Angela Hill. I don't know about that. Lackluster win against Sam Hughes. I haven't been impressed by her. Honestly, Loopy, if she doesn't go up, you know, another division and face Luana Carolina, she's probably a minus 200, 225 in this spot. I'm all over it here. I think she'll take her down at will.
Prodigy, I love it, man. Music to my ears. Marathon, how do you feel about this one? Are we both crazy?
Yeah, so it's his biggest play on Godinez. It's my play of the card on Loma, so that's fun. I'm just gonna start out with Loopy is a badass, but you don't fight Loma Lookboonmee on short notice. This is a girl you need a camp for, and you need training camps to go back and shore up things and reflect and sharpen up, improve. And you know it's clear that this girl has things to improve. Like the fight IQ just isn't there. She's spamming the same takedown on Carolina. She's caught in, you know, spider monkey on her back again, like just spamming the same body triangle. Like the IQ for me just isn't there. Like she's gonna struggle in the clinch here. She's gonna probably get pieced up on the feet. We're talking about her wrestling, which she kind of just bulldogs her way into these takedowns because she's so much stronger than these 115ers. But when she was coming up as a prospect, she was considered a boxer coming into the UFC. We were talking about is Lupita Godinez's boxing is so crisp. Mexican boxer. She's so fluid on the feet. The combos, the power. Now we're talking about her as this high pedigree wrestler, and I just don't see it. I think Luke Bunmi, how we're talking about her takedown defense is a huge stretch. She's really improved it a lot. And what did Carolina give Godinez fits with it? Let's see if we can make it through, dude. I got a big storm here at my place, so just try to bear with me, guys. The internet is just terrible. But yeah, no, so what I was saying is Loma, she has a good underhook. I don't see her getting body locked here. Like she's got a good underhook. She's got good takedown defense, in my opinion. This is just stuff I'm seeing on tape that, I'm not, maybe other people aren't. I just think that, the clinch that's going to be in the clinch a lot. Loopy's going to bulldog her way into these takedowns, and she's going to get knee to the body just like Carolina was doing to her. What happened in the third round? All that clinch work, all those takedowns. Loopy was tired. And why was that? Oh, she took it on short notice. Well, guess what? She's doing it again. So I think Loma will be able to piece her up on the feet. We're talking as if Loma's, her last outing, we were worried about her grappling. The grappling looked good. The grappling defense looked fine. It was more the fact that Hughes was landing at range on her. That was more concerning to me. Who the fuck is Sam Hughes to be landing on a Muay Thai world champion?
I agree. I agree with that.
I'm more worried about the standing element that, Lupi could crack. She's a fucking tank at 115. The wrestling, yeah, but then, she's on short notice. This girl's taking her third fight in 40 days. I think she gets tired. I think the fact for the Loma winning the third round is going to be a pretty high clip. I could see this being 1-1. Why the hell is she plus 140? I don't know. I think that this should be more line more of a pick 'em. So that's just my assessment on it. A lot of people are seeing it differently. I'm more worried about range than I am with the grappling because she understands what an underhook is, and Loopy spams the same takedown over and over. So
I would tend to agree with a lot of what you said there. And my biggest concern is that she's going to end up pushing her against the fence and not dropping down levels. But I also do think my only area of disagreement would be I feel like the reason she gassed against Luana is that Luana is so much bigger than her. And when you try and wrestle and grapple somebody who's bigger and heavier than you get tired. Whereas if you're trying to wrestle and grapple somebody your own size and you're having success, it's more tiring for them than it is for you. And I think that is what she needed to have happen. And she wasn't able to accomplish it for 2 rounds. I think if she had gotten 2 rounds of grappling off on Luana, it would have just been a disgusting round 3, and neither one of them would have energy left. But I think that what ultimately cost her is that she was so small and using too much strength, power, energy on every lift, every takedown. I think that in this fight, she won't have to use as much energy for these. Like Loma kind of backs herself up at times too. I think if she's able to use the push kick to keep space, that's where I see her having more success. Body work, I think, is going to be essential here. Going to want to slow down Loopy. But I just see Loopy getting in on cleaner wrestling attacks in this fight than she did in her last fight. Luana has that long legs that allow you to like spread far against the cage. And I just don't see that from Loma. I feel like one of the legs is going to be there if she decides to switch off on a single, and maybe she frustrates everybody by deciding not to again. But I think that this is kind of a better wrestling opportunity.
yeah, and one more thing. A lot of these entries by Godinez, like you said, Loma will be backing up. A lot of these entries are going to be taken to the fence, right? Look for the elbows, look for the underhook, look for the body knees from the clinch. Maybe she does get the takedown on a lot of these, but what is her cardio going to be like in round 3? I'm banking on a 1-1 fight, and I win round 3 at a high clip. This girl's not Superman. She's fucking human. She's taken 3 fights in 40 days. She's not going back to camp, shoring things up. She just went back to her home country, flies back. You know what I mean? So a lot of these entries, like I said, they're bulldog entries. They're going to be muscle, like real muscly takedowns. They're going to use a lot of energy. She's going to be up in the clinch. She's going to be getting kneed. Loma, right when you shoot a takedown on Loma, she gets the underhook. Even if you're going to still take her down, the underhook's there. It's like muscle memory, and you love to see that. So elbows, knees to the body, she's going to be just wearing on her. And I just think that even if she is landing the takedowns in those, the first 2 rounds, how's the cardio going to be on such short notice?
My last question on this fight, and then we can move along, boys, would just be, where do you put Lupi submission at? Do you not rate that as like a possibility here?
It's definitely a possibility. I think it was what, plus 450, plus 500?
I will check right now on best fight odds. Best number on Lupi to win by submission is plus 545 on 5 dimes, plus 500 everywhere else.
Yeah, there's some value there. I mean, Loma's dropped
I think
the
I will be
third
taking
round on
that.
a judge's scorecard in every one of her fights. It's not like she has great third rounds.
She did lose the 3rd round to Sam Hughes, but I do think there's some narrative to both of these ladies could be dog tired, and then the question is, does Lupi get the takedown if she tries to force it all round? I think that this is an interesting fight, boys, and I think that we've got 2 sharp guys here on opposite sides. I'm floating back and forth myself. I think Lupi by sub is very possible. But I am concerned about the cardio. If she tries to push a wrestling and grappling based fight here and can't make that happen early, I do think she might be hung out to dry a little bit as the fight goes on. But overall, I have to say Lupi is my side here. I'm going to end up on the Lupi pick, but I don't know if I'm going to get there at the betting window. You're going to have to check in with me on Twitter at LiamPicksFights, see if that makes it onto my final slate. But we've got 155 pounds up next. Rafa Garcia, been on a bit of a tough run in the UFC, takes on Nasrat Haqparast on short notice. Really tough fight for him there. But he showed some promise there. He was landing decent shots, just started to slow down as the fight went on. Kind of the same story against Chris Grutzmacher, where he had some success, was going off early, trying to empty the tank, and then finds himself bereft of cardio down the stretch. And, I want to credit the toughness of Rafa Garcia. He kind of stays in there for these beatings. And even when he's tired, he continues to fight. He just fights in a much less effective manner as far as I'm concerned. And then on the Natan Levy side, very little experience. That's not something I love to see. And yeah, just overall, kind of hard to know where to rate this guy. He's kind of been having regional level experience. Rafa Garcia, performed well in the regionals, and a lot of people had some hopes for his UFC run. Hasn't been able to put together a good fight with 15 minutes worth of cardio. So the question is, is this a step down spot for Rafa Garcia where he's able to find his footing in the UFC? Or is this Natan Levy, showing up on the scene and the UFC trying to give him, a winnable fight against a guy who's been struggling and who's probably on the outs with the organization? So with that being said, we'll kick it to my man Prodigy. How do you feel about this one, my friend?
So I was coming into this one looking for a nice buy low spot on Rafa Garcia, coming off that big upset to Grutzmacher, which somehow is fortunate to avoid that one. His cardio is a concern, but we've seen in other fights, the Haqparast fight, he was there for 3 rounds. I know it was pretty much a stand-up affair, but he had decent cardio there. I think he just blew his load against Grutzmacher. I don't have a good read on Levy. He's impressed me pretty much, but it's against some low-level competition. I'm kind of staying away from this fight. I think one of these guys is going to end up grapple fucking the other one. And somebody's going to look like a minus 400 here, but I'm not sure which one.
The only other thing I want to mention here is just Natan Levy. I think he's definitely got the grappling path here, but it wasn't 2 fights ago. He was a minus 520 favorite to Ben Lugo in the LFA and ends up winning a majority decision. I'm pretty sure he got dropped in that fight as well. So just some causes for concern in terms of regional level competition. But I do think, I see what you see, Prodigy, in terms of the grappling is definitely something to write home about. It's pretty good, but the question is, will it be effective enough on Rafa Garcia, who I think is a decent enough wrestler? He trains with pretty good wrestlers as well. So Marathon, we'll kick that over to you. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, so I do have a play on Levy, just a small play, -110. The line moved the other way, so I'm not too happy about that. But I think we saw what Garcia did to us last time. He busted everyone's parlays, blew his load in the first few minutes, looked terrible. Absolute disgraceful performance. So to be able to fade him here at this price, at a pick'em price, I think is pretty solid, considering that I do think I have a decent read on Levy. A lot of his fights have been in LFA. You brought up the Ben Lugo fight. He got rocked and could barely stand in that fight. And to me, getting rocked like that early on in your regional career is good. It's great for tape, because what did he do? The dude could barely stand up doing the salsa, and he lands a takedown. I love that. You know what I mean? I love that on the regionals. You're getting wobbled and you land the takedown. So to me,
The
that
Kevin
shows
Lee
me that
Edson Barbosa special.
Yep, that
When he
shows
got
me
hit
that
with
this
the
kid
head kick
has.
and just shoots the double.
Yeah, that just shows me this kid has good fight IQ. On tape, great top pressure, good cardio. Just like I said, like his chin checked out. He took some big shots in that Lugo fight and survived. Went on to win the fight. Banked the next 2 rounds. Avoided a 10-8 in round 1. You know what I mean? So, because I was on the way to a 10-8 round. And he's in great shape, coming out of a great camp, Syndicate MMA. Let's not forget his Contender Series fight. He took that fight on 3 days' notice. 3 days' notice, and comes out, and the cardio checked out. 3 days' notice. Comes in, looks great, makes quick work. Wasn't a big favorite. I think maybe -140. Wins that fight 4 days' notice. Looks good. So, you're getting plus money now to fade Garcia after his last outing. Garcia, he what is he? I mean, he's pretty solid, decent everywhere, but I don't know, man. Just he left a bad taste in my mouth after his last outing. I'm fine with fading him at this price tag, and we know Levy has wrestling upside, so kung fu style up when he's standing, so should be able to see a lot of the things away from Rafa. He fights long, fights that karate stance. And I like his top game. I like his position over submission. The top game to me checks out. So the only thing I'm really worried about here is probably a size disadvantage, right? Levy looks like a guy that could probably drop down a weight class, and Garcia's pretty solid. So small play on Levy just for the facts that I just said. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to fade Garcia here at this price tag.
That makes sense to me. And I think the only other thing I would add is just that, earlier in his career, he had some UFC level wins, some Contender Series level wins, beat Chase Gibson, beat Humberto Bondanay, beat Estevan Payan. So it's not like he's beating these lower level fighters. He's challenged himself on the combate scene as best he could. But yeah, I do think overall his UFC performances have left a little bit to be desired. So he's going to try and right the ship here. I've got no action on it either way. But, a weird fight, in my opinion. You got a UFC debutant. You got a guy who's really underperformed expectations in the UFC, but had more experience prior to coming than the guy who's coming in now has at all. So it's just a weird fight, in my opinion. But wishing all you guys with action the very best of luck. It's good guys versus the bookies. But next up, we got maybe the most intriguing fight on the card to break down, in my opinion. And I might get some pushback on that, but this is the fight that really caught my eye. I kind of feel like it's a tricky fight to break down, but a really interesting one. You got Tucker Lutz on one side, and this guy is like just a fighter to his core. Graduated high school and started training to fight. And then on the other side, you've got Pat Sabatini, and Pat's got, very good credentials. I believe he's a black belt under Daniel Gracie out of Henzo Gracie, Philly. On top of that, wrestled for Rider University at the Division I level. He's got, I think, 100+ wins in the state of Pennsylvania in high school, which if you guys wrestled, you know what that means. That's very, very difficult to come by. And I think you see that when you watch Pat Sabatini in the cage. His setups are pretty dang good for his takedowns. When he shoots, he normally gets it. But I do think he's also got some concerning tendencies, starts to slow down in third rounds, a little bit willing to play guard from the back when he's getting tired. Pat is billed as a submission artist and is a submission artist, but, he also, it says a TKO. Go back and watch, guys. It's not a TKO. It's a broken arm from an armbar from the guard. And I think that Pat just got a little lackadaisical, maybe was a little overconfident there, and the guy snapped his arm and ended the fight. And Pat's a tough son of a bitch because he didn't even react. He just kept trying to lift the guy up and slam out of it. And the ref's like, stop. Like, it's all over. And really weird one, gross one. You can go back and watch that if you'd like. But I think that this Tucker Lutz guy, he had some concerning tape on the regionals. I just think I've been seeing improvement from the guy fight over fight. He comes in with pretty solid game plans. He doesn't take a bunch of unnecessary risks. He tends to fight a fight that is very winnable for him. If I had to give a criticism of Lutz, I'd say sometimes he tends to slow down a little bit in that third round as well, gets a little bit dicier for him. His volume starts to go down, and sometimes he carries his hands a little bit low on the feet. But I don't think Pat is necessarily the guy to make you pay for that. He doesn't strike me as a big power hitter. He's a little bit more technical. He's trying to get into his grappling situations first and foremost. And I do think his topside pressure is very impressive. He's going to be able to pass the guard in all likelihood if he gets him down. I think that what becomes interesting to me is, Tucker Lutz hasn't really been held down often, especially recently. He's been able to get underhooks like Marathon was mentioning. A lot of people are content to just stay underneath. Tucker Lutz comes from a wrestling background in Maryland, not as high level as Pat, but that's still pretty decent wrestling down there. And I'll tell you what, it shows in his fights. He gets underhooks. He works his way back up to his feet. He does not settle for the bottom position very often. And I think that could be the difference maker in this fight. You got one guy who starts to tire and starts to settle for that bottom position, whereas you've got another guy who may get a little bit tired, but he's throwing absolute hammers on the feet. He's got a pretty good sprawl and brawl game. And when people try and shoot on him, he's trying to punish them. He's trying to punish them with shots to the body. He's trying to punish them with elbows. Kind of reminds me of Shane Burgos in that way, like a sadist about staying on the feet. And I think that overall, man, I really like what Tucker Lutz has to offer. I might have to sit back and watch this one because I kind of missed the line movement. And I think that overall, Tucker Lutz is a desirable dog play for me, but as it starts to get towards that pick'em price, that plus 110, I think a lot of the value's been extracted. I do think Pat, if he gets this fight to the ground early, is very live for a sub. There is a little bit of a level difference on the ground. I want to say that Tucker Lutz is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he comes from Ground Control Academy. He alleges that there's a bunch of other prospects that are waiting to emerge from the gym. It didn't look like they had the greatest records when I was going on Tapology, but, Lutz kind of keeps everything he does under wraps. There's not a lot of images of this guy training. There's not a ton of footage, but he shows up looking like a truck. He shows up looking in great shape. And I think that he's going to be ready to swing for 15 minutes with Pat Sabatini on the feet here. And I think that if Pat's not able to get takedowns, this fight gets very dicey. Last time out, he kind of got bailed out by Jamal Emmers. He got hurt really badly. He was starting to get stung on the feet, went for a shot. And one of the concerning tendencies is that Pat wrestles from his knees sometimes. And he was wrestling from his knees and got punched by Jamal, almost got knocked out, was able to recover. Jamal stayed on top and guard, ends up getting into a leg entanglement and goes for the toe hold as his leg gets ripped apart. So I'm like, well, Jesus, Jamal. I had a plus 500 Pat Sabatini by sub ticket, and I still was like, Jamal, seriously? But it was a crazy fight. I think that Lutz is not the kind of guy to let you off the hook. With low fight IQ. I think he will call Pat back up to the feet and finish him with strikes. So I'm interested in plus 500 on Lutz by KO. And maybe I'll play the Lutz money line, but I haven't touched anything yet. I'm interested to hear how you guys shake on this matchup. Because like I said, I spent a lot of time looking at tape trying to break this one down because I felt it was really compelling and both guys have a lot of positive things to offer. So in fact, we'll switch up the order. We'll kick it to my man, Marathon. You're already unmuted. Marathon, hit us with what you got, brother.
Yeah, so you made a lot of good points. Pretty much the same read I got. I think Tucker Lutz, his best attribute is his fight IQ and game planning. He always comes in knowing what his opponent wants, and his path to victory here is definitely just sprawl and brawl. Like you go out here, you sprawl and brawl, you probably win this fight. I could see it playing out a lot of the way that Emmers, got the best of Sabatini. I could see, Sabatini getting tired, shooting a sloppy takedown, Lutz bailing, selling out for the sprawl and just landing bombs on top. Maybe snatch up a Darce or something. But the sub's a stretch. I think his KO prop's probably a good play. Sabatini leaves his head on the center line. We know that. No head movement. Mouth starts opening up in the second round. His cardio is not great. And he doesn't really have the style to really make Tucker Lutz tired. So I don't see a play on Sabatini. If anything, it's the dog or pass here. I can see just a sprawl, just selling out for the sprawl, gassing Sabatini out and wearing on him.
That all makes sense to me. And, the only other thing I'll mention is Marathon was kind of hip to something that occurred to me as well, which he was saying, maybe it makes more sense to play the knockout. Maybe it makes more sense to look inside the distance. But that sub line dropped at plus 2,500 on Bet Online, and it got bet down to plus 2,000. That, I think, is the best market price now. And the reason that number is coming down, in my opinion, is because Sabatini, when he starts shooting and getting desperate, Lutz, his favorite move is the guillotine. If you've seen him do it on the regionals, it's nasty. He can put people to sleep with it. So I don't think it's the highest level possibility, but Pat, who is billed as a top level grappler and has been submitted before from a lapse of focus, in my opinion, where he got his arm snapped. And I don't think Lutz is going to be breaking any limbs, but I think if you relax and get complacent, Tucker Lutz could snap on that guillotine and you could wake up looking at the lights. So I do think that Lutz isn't a black belt, but Chael Sonnen's talked about black belts in certain positions. And I think that Tucker Lutz has a black belt in the guillotine, man. I think he's dangerous there. Guillotine's my favorite move. He looks like an absolute killer when he applies it. Good hand position, very deep on the neck, and he doesn't have the longest arms. So that means he's using correct head position as well. I think there's a lot to like about his defensive grappling game. Prodigy, how about you?
Yeah, I see it the same way you guys have it. I love the dog shot on Lutz here. I was really high on Sabatini coming in. That Emmers fight, I wasn't so high on him after that. I mean, that was classic Emmers fight IQ lapse. He's got high level BJJ, but that gas tank is definitely a question. I honestly haven't been as impressed with his MMA wrestling as I thought I would be, coming from a D1 guy, but yeah, I think Tucker Lutz is just a dog here. You just got to make this a dirty fight, stay off your back, and just box him up. If this stays on the feet, I don't see any way that Sabatini wins this fight. So I took plus 116. I'm considering the knockout as well. I saw 500, and I'm definitely going to hit Lutz pretty hard here.
What I think is so interesting too is that, number one, the bookmakers have gotten smart to Sabatini by submission. So that's why there's just no value in that, even though I think it is a live possibility and it's a large part of Pat's win equity in this fight. It's like plus 385 or something, it's just like not really something that's going to get me out of bed for that number. And I honestly think the smarter bet at that point would just be the fight doesn't go the distance. If you think Pat's going to win the fight by submission, but you want that insurance in case Tucker kills him, or in case Tucker submits him late or some crazy stuff, then I think plus 120, plus 125 that's available right now on fight doesn't go the distance isn't a bad look. That being said, featherweight fights, I think, go to the distance more often than like any other weight class in the UFC. So that is just something to keep in the back of your head here. I think that's very possible. And I think if it goes to a decision, I favor Tucker Lutz. So I'm probably going to end up with a shot on the dog here. I think that, maybe I'm underselling Pat. Maybe he's going to come out here and his wrestling's going to look better. I think Jack Attack mentioned, the Tristan Connolly fight, that is against a black belt. That is against a guy who's coming down from UFC fights at 170 pounds. It's like there was a couple weird factors about that fight that could have contributed to him gassing, but overall, not enough for me to be sold on Pat. That arm break that I was talking about occurred in regional level competition. Granted, just want to note that these CFFC guys, my man Sean Orr, who's been on the program before, he mentioned CFFC has one of the highest win rates among regional promotions in the UFC. And maybe we'll talk about that later as well, as another CFFC product and another Renzo Gracie Philly product will be in the co-main event. But we can move right along, boys. We got another banger. Talk about action fights. We got my man Davy Grant, Dangerous Davy, cost me last time, but I'll go to the well with him. Against Chito Vera there when he's going to win the first round most of the time as a plus 250. So it was good fun, but overall a brutal beatdown in the end. And Chito Vera, I didn't credit his improvements enough, and I think that was brought to bear in that fight. Davy Grant pretty clearly beat him the first time they fought and pretty clearly lost the second time. So I think that overall, this is a fun one, man. Adrian Yanez got fast hands. He's got excellent counters, but he's not invincible. And people know that after the last fight. Randy Costa put absolute bomb after bomb on his face for the first 5 minutes of the fight. Or I should say for the first 4 minutes of the fight, because then he started to get the timing, started to get his reads, started to get his composure back, and was able to pick him apart. So I think that this is a tricky fight, man. I love Davy Grant, and I have massive personal biases towards him. I think he's got the greatest story ever. He has enough money to retire from fighting. He runs a pizza shop, and he's just such a violent bastard. This is what he wants to do on a Saturday at 35. I'm like, God bless you, brother. So Davy Grant will always have my respect, but I think that this time, the UFC gave him a couple guys that were exploitable. Jonathan Martinez comes to mind. In addition, Martin Day comes to mind. This seems like a fight that's really going to be tough for Davy to win unless he's able to get the grappling going. And I just haven't seen enough commitment to grapple from Davy. He really only grapples when he's already hurt most of the time. And I think that for that reason, Adrian might just be able to find the off switch on my man Davy Grant. Everybody seems to think that, which makes me not want to bet it. And I think I'm ultimately going to pass on this fight, but I will just say, as the line continues to go up and up to plus 260, it does make me start to question whether I should be getting involved on Davy Grant on principle, because I did bet him against ranked contender Chito Vera at a similar price. And Adrian Yanez, like I mentioned, he obviously is a talented guy, but he's a far less proven talent than Chito Vera. So it's like, tricky. So with that being said, I'm going to kick this over to my man Prodigy. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, so Yanez coming off 4 straight knockouts. Everybody's extremely high on him. I think this is a great sell high spot on Yanez here against a tough veteran Davy Grant. I took Davy at the plus 250 last time against Chito. I didn't hate that, but he definitely got mauled in the third round. But I think if he goes to his grappling, he can make this a close fight. I think he could catch Yanez on the feet. He's hittable. He's so damn slow. But I think he could definitely catch him or grapple him here. You just can't give me this kind of price on Davy Grant at plus 260 against. I don't want to say he's unproven, but he hasn't been grappled by too many heavy wrestlers in the UFC so far.
I could not agree with you more, Prodigy. Marathon, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, bear with me, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just
never a word.
I didn't really tape it much, just because we know these two very well. We've been, I know these guys. So you combine Adrian Yanez's boxing with Davy Grant's striking defense. The people laying the juice on him are probably gonna cash here. I don't hate Yanez round 1 and 2 prop. I don't know what it's at, but that's probably gonna hit. His KO prop probably hits. We know Davy Grant, and Davy Grant, he was on a run, and he just got the shit beat out of him. You're 35, you're on a run, you're feeling great, maybe a resurgence in your career, and then somebody takes that from you. So I think he could come in here and just look like total shit. He could look the age he could really look 35 here, in my opinion, because he was kind of on a roll there, and Cheeto took that from him, a guy who he's already beat. And Yanez is gonna probably start off slow again, but Costa's good. I mean, we
He's
say
huge.
round one Costa is beating most of the division. You know what I mean? In a round one fight, not many guys are gonna beat Randy Costa. This dude can throw fucking 20 head kicks and 15, 20 leg kicks in a round. So yeah, was it a little concerning that Yanez was just a punching bag in there for a while? Yeah, but I don't rate round one Davy Grant as high as I would rate, round one Costa. Davy Grant's a guy that's been rocked by Martin Day. The dude who's 0-4, got his walking papers, probably one of the shittier fighters they've ever signed. And Martin Day hurt Davy Grant. So, I mean, what should Yanez do to him here? Probably just come in here, weather the first couple minutes. I can see him wearing on him late first, early second, get the TKO.
Fair enough, man. And I think that that's probably the most likely outcome. But I do get where Prodigy is coming from the money line perspective as well. I think that from a money line standpoint, I don't know that I want to lay minus 300 on somebody that we're all conceding may lose first rounds, may give them away a little bit. But I also think that Davey is not that fast a starter either. Even in the Martin Day fight, he kind of came on a little bit as the fight went on, needed to get touched a little bit before he woke up. And I don't know that you have the same kind of leeway in this fight. So that would be my concern on the Davey Grant side. But I do think also it's kind of hard to bet against Davey's recoverability because he's been absolutely lasered with a hard shot and then just like woke back up in a decent guard attempt. I'm like, what? How did that happen? I think that Davey is not like completely over the hill, but like I mentioned, man, it's the damage accumulating that's scaring me a little bit. So I'm probably going to end up passing on this fight, maybe a small poke on the Grant money line, or maybe a poke on the fight doesn't go. Let me just take a look at what the line is there. The under 2.5 is at minus 135. I don't hate that. I think that either one of these guys could finish. But I don't know. I'll have to think about that more before I lay down the wood. But we can move right along, boys. We've got a 125-pound fight. Women's flyweight division. Talia Santos will be taking on Joanne Wood. And Joanne Wood has been around since, the Ultimate Fighter strawweight days. Talia Santos, a little bit of the new kid on the block here. But I think that Talia Santos, I can kind of understand why she's a favorite here. I think that it's a little bit wide, but I also think that her physical advantages are there. I think that JoJo kind of loses to the same mold of fighters, which is like more physically dominating grapplers throughout her career. She's done well even as an underdog against good strikers like Andrea Lee, but when somebody's able to out grapple her and push that kind of grappling fight, it just seems to take her off her game a little bit. And I think that, am I rushing to the window? No, I'm not rushing to the window with Talia Santos, but I do think it's a bad style matchup for Joanne Calderwood. And I think from a physicality standpoint, she will be a little bit outmatched here. But, I don't know exactly what to make of this fight, man. Talia Santos has looked pretty good, but nothing exceptional, I would say, so far in her UFC run. So it leaves me just, uninspired to bet this fight. Prodigy, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm about the same way. Pretty uninspired. I've seen plus 300s on JoJo, which that's getting a little out of hand, but she really does like to just sit on her back when somebody takes her down. There's not too much dog in her off her back. But I can't lay minus 380 on Talia Santos here. I'm not too interested in this fight, honestly.
Fair enough. Marathon, is this one that interests you, or are you riding with me and Prodigy here in the pass train?
Yeah, I do think she's parlayable just because the archetype of fighters that Calderwood loses to, it's Talia Santos. If you're gonna play Calderwood, probably play her by decision because I think if Tyler throws the fight IQ and game plan out the window, which could happen, she could stand with Calderwood for 3 rounds, and that's where it gets greasy. Because then it would play out very close. But Tyler's shown that she's going to go to her best path to victory. I think that she just ragdolls Wood, and then a takedown on Wood's around. She doesn't have much to give off her back. So yeah, I think Santos should just probably, if she grapples, she probably looks minus 400, just like the price that it's at. And if she doesn't, it can get really greasy.
I would tend to agree there. And, another thing to consider as we move along from this fight is just that it is going to be the small cage guys. And that tends to favor the grapplers, people who are trying to force clinch exchanges. And I think that, one thing I want to mention is Joanne Calderwood is very good in the clinch. But if you're trying not to get taken down, being in the clinch is a tough place to be. So it's like, I just feel like JoJo is neutralized a little bit by the style dynamic, like Marathon mentioned. And like I said, didn't run to bet it at the window, but did strike me as the pretty obvious side pre-tape, and I didn't see anything on tape that made me sway towards the other side here. So I'm going to end up leaning with Talia Santos. She's a big favorite, but I think she's going to get the job done. So now we can move right along, guys. Another fight, to be honest, I'm not inspired to bet this one either. It's Kyung-Ho Kang. It's Hani Yaya. It's a couple older bantamweights here that never really got traction going in the division. I say that with all due respect. Hani Yaya, grappling legend. I think he competed at like 2000 or 2002 ADCC or something. Like, this guy's on his like third lifetime in combat sports doing the damn thing. And I think when this matchup was initially booked, I had some lean towards Yaya. But my problem here is, number one, the fight's been rebooked. He's the older guy. He had a case of COVID. The line's the same. I just don't like it. I think Kyung-Ho Kang is like a primary grappling threat in most of his fights. That's what he likes to control, the grappling scenarios. He's not a very high volume striker by any means. And so I think that this fight could turn into a greasy kickboxing match. I think if it does, Hani Yaya is actually like sneaky live there. I think that if Hani Yaya just slows down, as he's been accustomed to do, it will be from, trying and failing to grapple. I think it's possible that Hani Yaya submits Kyung-Ho Kang. I don't think it's the most likely thing, but I do rate him as a better overall grappler. I just think Kyung-Ho Kang is probably going to be able to keep it upright. My question is how the fight gets approached. I think if Hani Yaya comes out here, to strike in an ugly kickboxing fight, I think he could actually win it, but I do think it's just a really ugly fight and hard for me to see how it's going to play out. I don't know if Kyung-Ho Kang shoots takedowns or not here. I think if he does, he might be able to get him, but I really have a hard time finding a solid read on this fight. Prodigy, how about you?
Yeah, this is the only fight I've yet to tape on this card. I'm excited to go back and watch those old WEC Ronnie Yaya fights, but I'm not that interested. There's a reason I left it for the last one. But I will be rooting for the old man here, but no play right now.
Fair enough, man. You got to root for them old guys. Glover Teixeira, just let them know anything's possible, baby, and cash me a nice plus 200 or so. Or actually plus 225, plus 245 is a beautiful number. Marathon, what do you got on this one? Anything?
Yeah, no, I refuse to tape this fight. So this fight is terrible. It's the fight I'm least excited for. I'll probably liquor store fight, probably head of the liquor store during this fight. So yeah, no, Kang by decision or Yaya by sub. It's pretty cut and dry if you know these two guys. If Yaya can implement his game, he'll gas, and Kang will probably win a decision. And if Yaya can implement his game, he probably snatches it up fairly easily. So,
Yo, go bet this fight to end by split decision if it's a good number. I don't have access to DraftKings where I'm at right now, but that's immediately what came to mind is Kyung-Ho Kang, even in fights where he kind of like clearly wins, he gets split decisions because he's low volume and he doesn't do a ton. And Hani Yaya puts himself in weird grappling transitions. I don't know. Split decision seems like something that's written all over this fight, but maybe the wheels fall off at some point for Hani Yaya, who's getting up there in age. Either way, it's a slop fest. I can't believe it's this high on the card when Tucker Lutz and Pat Sabatini is dwindling in the prelims. That's absolutely shameful. But either way, guys, we can move on to the co-main event. Probably should be the main event. probably the best fight on the card. Got Michael Chiesa taking on Sean Brady. This is a good matchup, guys. I'm really excited for this one. You've got two high-level grapplers. Seth is all on board with the liquor store fight for Marathon. So shout out, Seth. But yeah, I just got to say, Michael Chiesa, I've been pretty good at predicting his fights so far, and that's why not having the strongest read here is concerning me just a touch. But Michael Chiesa against Neil Magny, I liked him there. I liked him at the underdog price. Neil Magny is eminently grappleable. And then meanwhile, you see the next time out against Vicente Luque. Vincente's my guy. I love Vicente Luque. And I was like, this seems like something that I didn't get there at the betting window, I don't think. Maybe small on Luque, but I wasn't like rushing out because he was at the favorite distinction. And I was like, do I want to fade Chiesa as a dog here? I have cashed him as a dog before. And ultimately, I just leaned with Luque's heart, his big game ability, his power on the feet. And I think that the power on the feet is kind of what caused the panic there from Chiesa, because otherwise the fight was pretty much going his way. It's just like, if he sees any kind of lapse in his ability to control a fight, I think it could break him mentally. And he kind of talked about that after the fight. He said it was a mental lapse, and, he was pissed at himself for rushing. And I think that, we've seen the similar dynamic play out before. Michael Chiesa's been out. He's an anomaly. He's out grappled my man Beneil Dariush and made me think, holy shit, this guy is like all the goods on the ground. And then he's had performances where Kevin Lee's on his back, where, he's just allowing these weird transition positions where he lets Vicente Luque, who's literally the most dangerous Darce threat in the division, wrap up a Darce. It's just like, I couldn't fathom some of the fight IQ there. And so I will not be rushing to the window to bet Michael Chiesa. I do think that this is a tough step up in competition for Sean Brady, though. I think Jake Matthews was a very winnable fight for him. I think this is a little bit of a tougher matchup. Michael Chiesa, he's going to want to be in those grappling situations. He's going to want to be in those positions. I just think that the fight is kind of binary in the sense that if Mike is getting the better of the wrestling and grappling, he'll be in it and he'll want to stay in the fight. And then, Sean, who's got an interesting guard game, I think the fight is still interesting and fun if Sean ends up on his back at various points. I think he's going to be winning the exchanges on the feet. Chiesa is not a good striker, but he's good at closing distance and keeping a fight in close quarters. So I think that Sean's going to need to be able to create space in this fight or be the one getting takedowns. I might sit back and gather data on this fight. If I was to play a side right now, I would probably lean towards the Brady side. I think Brady inside the distance is interesting as well because Chiesa tends to fall apart in losses. But, man, I don't know exactly how to feel about this one, man. Sean Brady is taking a little bit of a grappling step up here. And I do think Vicente Luque just doesn't get enough credit for his high-level skills in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That front headlock game is disgusting, and it has been for years. So it's like, I think that, Vicente might just be a little slept on for his submission props, but I also think this is a big step up. Sean Brady, good Irish name. I want this guy to win the freaking fight, but Chiesa, I got to give him his due credit and respect. As an offensive grappler, he's very good. I think he's got some defensive liabilities. Marathon, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so I do think that this line's kind of a joke in my opinion. It's huge recency bias. It's vet versus prospect. Prospect hasn't really fought anybody. Gets the step up. You take the vet dog here. Long term, you're killing it. You're absolutely killing it. This guy was just 5 seconds away in a little couple tweaks, in positioning to subbing Luque, and then what? You know what I mean? This fight wouldn't even be happening, and if it did, Kiesa's the favorite. He's been around the block. He's got a win over a guy like RDA, Beneil Dariush that you mentioned. And you look over to the Brady side. How can you be confident, man? Like he fights down to his competition. He just go watch the Matthews fight. I had Brady. Go watch round 1, round 2 of the Matthews fight. Go watch round 3 of the Court McGee fight. Go watch round 2. Round 2 wasn't even like all Brady. Go watch round 1 of Nardiev. Lost that round. Where's Nardiev? Like this guy's just not he's got the goods, but he's just fighting down to his competition. He's coming in here. He doesn't possess KO power to knock Mike out on the feet. This fight's gonna hit the mat. He's at a 3.5-inch reach disadvantage. Kiesa probably lands a takedown here. If you want to fade the guy that's going to be on top because he likes to leave his neck, or he's positionally like very, I don't even know what you'd call it. Like Mike just makes stupid mistakes.
Sloppy.
Yeah. So if you want to take the guy that's probably not going to get a knockout, he's probably going to fight these rounds very close. If you want to go lay juice on that guy, then go ahead. Like how I see it being is round one's going to be a wash on the feet. It's going to be very boring. Round two, Kiesa's going to start, imposing his will, probably shooting the takedowns, maybe not getting them up against the cage. And then I think round three, I think Kiesa lands the takedown and chokes this kid out. Like Brady's not blowing these dudes out of the water. He's minus 500, minus 600. And I thought I was down 0-2 in the Matthews fight going into round three, and then he gets the sub, and I was sweating bricks. Like, he doesn't blow anybody out of water. It's a huge step up in competition, and Mike has a sour taste in his mouth after the last fight. Like, he's preaching in the media right now, position over submission, and if he just goes out there and does that, then he puts himself in a good position to win this fight. Dog money, just after being a favorite against Luque, like. Let's go Mike Kiesa. I got a couple units on him, and I mean I'll be fine if I lose this bet. I'll live with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean, especially at the number. Playing Mike Kiesa at that money line underdog price when a lot of his career he's been favored in the UFC and even against pretty good guys. So I think that has a lot of credence to me. Prodigy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it pains me to go against both of these Philly guys. I like Sabatini and I like Brady, but I mean, I think this line should honestly be flipped. I don't
Let's go.
see why. I don't see why Brady's a minus 160. I could see a pick 'em maybe, but Kiesa was winning that fight before he got Darst right there. I mean, I was on Luke too. I was very happy about it. I think only way Brady really wins this fight is if he catches him in one of those subs. I think Kiesa has the better stand-up. He's got the reach advantage. And if he just offensive wrestles, I think he could have a lot of luck here. But you got to watch out for that guillotine of Brady. I mean, that's lethal. That's probably his best shot. If you're playing Brady, I would just Brady plus 275 by sub is probably the best bet. But other than that, I don't see how you're not on Kiesa here.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys are saying makes a lot of sense to me. My areas of concern would be, Mike tends to be this upper body wrestler. He likes to wrap people up in the clinch. And Brady is built like a house. It's like he's not the kind of guy that you can get long and gangly around. I feel like the Neil Magny fight is like Mike Chiesa's bread and butter, right? Somebody who's super long, gangly, not that physically powerful. Whereas I do think somebody like Kevin Lee was able to offer some problems in part because he's such a physical, domineering type wrestler who's a little bit more stout. I think that, Sean Brady, that's his advantage here is he's lower to the ground. He's got a low center of gravity. And, like you mentioned, he's got that reach disadvantage in the grappling. Sometimes that could be an advantage because it means your limbs are, less likely to be extended. I think that Brady is probably going to be pretty defensively responsible from a submission standpoint. But that being said, I could definitely see a path towards a Kiesa decision here. I think that that's his most likely path to victory. Kiesa, he's found opportunities to submit, but like Marathon mentioned, he's been preaching position over submission for this fight, especially. I would not be surprised to see him try and get on top and ride out fights from the top half guard. But what I think is interesting is just that Brady plays a really good deep half guard game. And he is a high level grappler in his own right. I think the difference between them is that Brady's grappling is a little bit more traditional, a little bit more, probably closer to the grappling meta, whereas Mike Kiesa is kind of like a MMA grappler, weird self-developed style. So I do think that's the reason why at times Kiesa's game falls apart is because somebody who's a little bit more traditional in their grappling figures him out. But that's the only reason I'm not rushing to play the Kiesa side here. I think Kiesa is the side from a money line perspective. But man, I don't know. This is a tricky fight. I may revisit the tape on Brady's grappling before making a final assessment here. But I think it's a good fight. I think it's a fight that, if we could see it play out over 5 rounds, would be a lot more interesting as well. And I think that would definitely push Michael Chiesa towards being a favorite. But with that being said, guys, we can move right along to this main event. We've got a women's bantamweight fight, Miesha Tate, fresh off a cupcake of a matchup, if you will, against Marion Renault. In her last time out, Marion was 44 years old, announced prior to the fight that she was going to retire. Ketlen Vieira on the other side here, lost a very close decision to Yana Kunitskaya, basically gave that away on optics and fight IQ because she controlled for like 4.5 or so minutes and then gets busted open with elbows and stuff down the stretch to lose the fight in the waning seconds. So really frustrating, I'm sure, if you were a Ketlen Vieira backer in that spot. And Yana Kunitskaya hasn't looked tremendous since, so it's not like that win, or excuse me, the loss has aged tremendously well. And on the Miesha Tate side, the win over Marion Renault is not going to age at all because Marion retired right after the fight. So it's like, we don't really know exactly how to rate that performance from Miesha Tate, in my opinion. I would say I liked some of the in and out movement on the feet. I liked some of the working behind the jab, finding, decent level change entries. I will say her level change, she has pretty decent chain wrestling. Like, Miesha went from one attack to putting the leg behind the foot to trip her out, to coming up on the double leg to switching off to the single. I liked a lot of those grappling transitions from Miesha. The problem for me here is that Ketlen kind of has weird counter wrestling. She doesn't tend to defend takedowns in a traditional way. She's a judo player, so she throws people. And I don't think it's outside the realm that she throws Miesha on her head. We've kind of seen Miesha get her hips out of balance. The Rousey fights come to mind, but there's been other examples too. She's a pretty good wrestler, but she's barreling forward, looking for a takedown. That's the kind of time you could throw somebody. So I do think Ketlen might be live to get on top at various points early in this fight, but her cardio has been a liability, and we mentioned that right off the rip. She kind of trains with the Novu Uniao crowd. She's the highlight, coming out of their women's program right now, probably the highest ranked in the UFC. And I think that this is a winnable fight for Ketlen. I think Miesha is a solid fighter, but I kind of find it hard to evaluate her. She's 35 years old, coming back off lung layoff. Obviously looks committed to the title aspirations and everything like that, saying all the right things in the media. But for me, it's a lot to bank on Miesha Tate in this spot, having not seen her against her contemporaries. Ketlen Vieira has been fighting the toughest ladies in the division by and large. Beat Kat Zingano. I didn't think that should have been a split decision. I thought that was pretty clear, that she had won the first 2 rounds there. And then, moreover, Irene Aldana did knock her out. And that's the big concern. In part is like, maybe it shook her confidence. Maybe that's why she's not as willing to be aggressive. But I thought that she was kind of performing admirably in the stand-up in that fight. Her defense is bad, but how many other girls in the division have knockout power? I wouldn't think very many. So I think that if Ketlen is keeping this fight upright, I do like her standing. I just don't know that I could trust her cardio, especially her first 25-minute fight. I don't like that at all. Miesha has 5-round experience. Granted, it was like 5 years ago. So I don't know how much it means today, but she's done it before. She's a high-level athlete. She looks like she's in tremendous physical shape. I cashed her last time against Marion Renault. So it's not like I'm off the Tate train overall, but this might just be a gathering data fight for me. I don't know yet. I think that Ketlen as a slight favorite kind of makes sense to me. So I think this line is priced appropriately. I hear a lot of people on the Tate side, and I could see it if she takes over the fight late. But I do think that, Ketlen Vieira is probably live early in this fight. She throws pretty hard, and she throws in decent combination. I haven't seen the best hand positioning from Tate in terms of her defensive reactions, and I do think it's not outside the realm that Ketlen actually puts down Miesha Tate, but I do think Miesha's tough. I think Miesha is going to try and take this fight late. I think she's got a decent mind for the game, so she knows what she has to do here in all likelihood. But I think Ketlen, while she's a winnable matchup and probably the most winnable for Miesha, or like the easiest win for Miesha in the top 10, I don't know, man. It just seems like Miesha is like from a bygone era. Holly Holm obviously still getting wins over Reina Aldana, putting some shame to that narrative. But this is just a fight that seems a little bit tricky to me. Everybody's on Miesha's cardio looking like roses here, but we didn't even see it tested. Basically, she got a free win in the third round because there was no resistance coming back in the closing seconds of that fight for Marion Renault. So I don't know that Miesha's cardio looks exceptionally better or what, it for me is a little bit of an unknown, especially at the age. I don't know. I'll probably end up passing this fight. Prodigy, how do you feel?
So it goes against a lot of what I believe in to take Miesha Tate in this fight. I hate the 5-year layoff. I know she just had a fight before, but I took her in that fight too, but that was against 44-year-old Marion Renault. But I don't like this gas tank of Ketlen Vieira at all. She's never won a third round in her UFC career. I do like the cardio of Miesha, even though we still don't exactly know about it. But I think she can just grind on her here. I'm willing to take the plus 100 that her money line's at right now. I don't think that'll stay that way come fight time. But I don't hate a round 4, round 5. I think it's plus 3,200, plus 3,400 on Miesha Tate. I think there's some value there. And I'm going to roll with Miesha here.
Awesome. So we got my man Prodigy on Miesha. Marathon, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm on her too. I got a couple units on her, and it's pretty cut and dry. We could talk about, the layoff and that we don't really know about her cardio, but one thing I can guarantee is it's better than Ketlen Vieira's. So, she's more composed. She's got a wrestling advantage. We got the cardio advantage that we just talked about. She throws more volume. She's fought better girls. She's got round 5 experience. She's been in big fights. She's gonna come in with a good game plan. She's and I keep hearing that she fought a 42-year-old Renault. Cool. But she still showed a bunch of new tools in her arsenal, regardless of who she fought. Like, the girl clearly went and added some things. You know what I mean? Like, the stand-up looks a lot better. The head movement looks a lot better. The entries look a lot better. She's gonna probably win the scrambles. Like, yeah, Caitlin's probably gonna win round 1 at a pretty high clip. I get that, but this is a 5-round fight, and I could see her maybe Vieira winning round 1. Round 2 is pretty in the air, like we don't really know who won it, and then 3, 4, and 5 are just all Tate. Her round 4, 5 decision prop, I'm not sure what it's at on FanDuel, but that's probably a very great play.
I was just about to say that to you, Marathon. It's funny you mentioned plus 160. I saw that and my eyes almost fell out of my chest. Even if I was on the Ketlen Vieira side, I'd probably play that as a hedge.
Yeah, see, so you're just getting a better price, and that covers pretty much all of her win condition. I mean, we've seen Vieira, gas in the third, so maybe Tate fucks you on that and gets a third round sub or something. But 4 or 5 decision plus 160 to get even more plus money. That's insane. That's ridiculous value. So yeah, Tate for all the reasons that I stated. I just think that she's a side here, and this girl's one tier ahead of Vieira in my opinion.
Makes sense to me, and I think you could basically play Ketlen Vieira around 1, 2, 3 at plus 320, and then unload the clip on Miesha Tate, rounds 4 or 5 decision, and maybe like Marathon pointed out, so you don't get fucked. You just play that Miesha round 3 just in case, and then we might be looking at a good time for this main event, no matter how things go, boys. So gonna see how I end up approaching this in the end, but I am definitely interested in that 4 or 5 decision prop for Miesha more than I am in the money line at a pick'em price. So wow, this seems like a pretty decent spot that we found on the main event. So before all you animals slam it, Gotta close up this show. Say thank you so much to all the 31 people still rocking with us live. Appreciate you guys. I know there's other shows that I will be catching up on. Great programs, smart guys on those programs as well. So when you're rocking with us, I really appreciate it tremendously. And moreover, I know you're rocking with us in part because I got these two amazing guests, Prodigy, Marathon, two returning guests of the show. Both killed it today, as they always do. And so we appreciate our guests as well tremendously for coming on the program. Thank you guys. And before we get out of here, I want to give you guys an opportunity. Let the people know where they could find you. Get anything you got off your chest before you get out of here. So my man Prodigy, I kick it to you first. Thank you so much for coming on, brother. And anything you got for the people, let them know.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Liam. You guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Prodigy MMA. Let's go, Lupita Godinez.
Max bet season. I'm just playing. Marathon. Let the people know where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, at Marathon MMA, just go and drop me a follow if you like the breakdowns. If you're interested in any kind of packages or a tout, Liam does have a code with me, so make sure you use that for a good price relief. I got some good deals going on right now. So plus 212 units tracked right now. So 100 plus units last year, 100 plus units this year. And we're all in November, so.
Absolute soldier of fortune. And guys, like Marathon said, if you want to get involved with what he's got, all the information for both my guests are in the description box below. But when you hit up my man Marathon, just let him know that Liam sent you for those extra blessings. You know what I'm saying? So guys, thank you all so much. Thank you once again to my sponsor, PrizePicks, who makes this possible. You guys can check out what they have on offer. The information is again in that description box below. And you can find me everywhere at LiamPicksFights. The reason my name is LiamPicksFights and not Liam Fight Picks is because I don't want to just be talking about it. I want to be about it. Saturday, I show up. I've got a match. It's going to be a jiu-jitsu sub-only contest. I'm really excited about it. So last week, I wasn't able to make it. I've been preparing for my competition, and my weight is down at 156.2. So we're right within striking distance where we ought to be. And I'm looking forward to having some more grappling highlights up on the page as well in the very near future, guys. So thank you for bearing with me last week. You know that we are trying to put out the best product each and every week that we possibly can. So thank you to my guests. Thank you to each and every one of you guys for watching live. God bless you all. Good luck on those bets. If you decide to take them, do so legally and responsibly within your means, and make sure that you have a great time doing it. Good guys versus the bookies each and every week. Come back next Thursday. We'll have all the same fun again. Thank you guys. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights.